Yo, welcome back to the MMA Fight Realm. Thanks for tuning in. If you are new, it is your boy Chris, and I'm back with another picks and predictions video. This time for UFC Louisville, Imavov taking on Cannonier in the main event. Hope you guys like, comment, subscribe. Let me know what you guys think of these picks in the comments, and let me know your picks in the comments as well. Let's break it down, man. Leading off the card, we got Puja Tomar taking on Rayanne Amanda. Now, first women's Indian fighter in the UFC. I'm sure you guys have all heard that already. She's small. She is small. She's listed at 5'1" on Tapology. That might not be true. All right. She looks small from the tape that I've seen, but she's stocky out there. She's 8-4, not a pretty record. And, you know, I don't really have the best read on her. I didn't watch all the regional scene fights, but the level of competition Puja is facing, not really the best. Not really the best. And Rayanne, she's going to close fights with Talita Alencar, a fight that I thought she won. You know, I thought she should have got her hand raised in that one, but it is what it is. It's a close fight. Close fights are not robberies, in my opinion. And Puja, you know, she's a good striker, but I think she's going to get exposed in the grappling by Rayanne Amanda here. And, you know, I just think Rayanne is going to be the better fighter here in the grappling. So I think Puja, you know, not fighting the tough competition in her career, she's going to have to prove to me that she is UFC caliber, because Rayanne, more ways to win. And I just don't know how Puja is going to look against at least UFC caliber competition here. So I'm picking Rayanne by decision in this fight. Not super confident, because Puja, you know, she's a good striker. I will say, if she could keep this one standing, she's gonna give Rayanne a run for your money. But I'm picking Rayanne here by decision. I think she mixes it up and gets the job done. Next fight, we got Cody Stamann taking on Taylor Lapilus. Striker versus grappler here. Lapilus picked up a tough loss to Farid Basharat. You know, he defended 11 out of 16 takedowns, but the control time over the course of 3 rounds, it tired him out. And, you know, I just think he lost that first and that third very clearly. But he's a great striker. He made it a tough fight. He's a great striker. He still got 77% takedown defense after that Basharat fight. And I think he's got more ways to win in this fight than his opponent. Cody Stamann, he's going to need to wrestle here. And that's exactly what he's good at. That's exactly what he's good at. But we're talking about a guy who has lost 3 of his last 5. And, you know, he's 34 now after a year layoff. And he's back against a guy who just fought one of the tougher grapplers of this weight class. So, you know, I don't rate the wins of Stamann very highly as of late either. You know, he beat a guy like Luan Lacerda, 0-2 in the UFC, already cut from the promotion. And then he has a win over 37-year-old Eddie Wineland. And, you know, out of his last 5, like I just said, he lost the other 3. So he's just not really convincing here. And I think Lapilus, he's going to use that reach advantage. They are the same height, but he's got that reach advantage in this one. I think he's going to just make it a boring decision. Stay on the outside, not overthrow anything that's going to get him taken down, and win this one by a boring decision. I got to go with Taylor Lapilus here. Stamann is going to have to be the aggressor, and at 34 with a year layoff, I'm just not confident in that. So I'm going Lapilus here by decision. Next fight, we got Eduarda Moura taking on Denise Gomes. 10-0, Eduarda Moura was able to finish Montserrat Ruiz in her debut. And, you know, she used the same things that's gotten her much of her success at strawweight and in her career, which is her size and her grappling. She trains with the same team that is, you know, made Jailton Almeida what he is today. And she's got 5 submission wins, 4 knockouts, 2 of them by ground and pound. And she's aggressive. She's very aggressive. She puts on a pace on the ground that her opponents usually cannot keep up with. And she will not look to lay and pray. She's looking to finish you out there in any which way and fashion. But she's technical. She won't give up a good position. And, you know, she missed weight in her debut. She came in at 119 pounds. But for her Contender Series fight, she made 115.5. So if she could figure out this weight cut to strawweight, it's going to be very obvious that she's going to be one of the bigger girls of this weight class. And that's going to play into her advantage in majority of her fights because of her fight style. She's taking on Denise Gomes here, who has been known for being a savage in the striking. 2 knockout finishes, one over Yasmin Harugui. That is, you know, it's aging very well. But apart from not catching these fighters with knockouts, she is getting very exposed in the holes in her game. She's getting taken down and controlled by Angela Hill. 38, almost 39-year-old Angela Hill is taking her down, you know, 8 times and racking up a bunch of control time. No, she's taking her down 5 times and she's controlling her for 8 minutes. That's not good, man. That's not good. Loma Lukbumi is taking her down 4 times and controlling her for 7 minutes. These girls are much smaller than Eduarda Moura. I think Eduarda Moura is very talented in the grappling, and she's going to show that again this Saturday. I'm picking Eduarda Moura here to get it done. At the worst, she will get it done by decision, just, you know, racking up control time, being the better grappler in those exchanges. But I think she can also finish Denise Gomes here by submission. So I wouldn't be surprised if she gets it done by submission in this one. I'm picking Eduarda Moura to get this one done. Next fight, Daniel Marcos taking on John Castaneda. Good fight for both of these guys. Marcos gets a step up in competition, and Castaneda gets to prove that you cannot just keep throwing him these prospects. I thought Marcos, he looked good in his last one. He looked good. He was on his way to a finish against Arichi Lang, and, you know, until Lang found a way out, in my opinion, that nut shot, it landed, and it was the second time, and it led to a no contest. But Marcos was on his way to getting a finish in that fight. If it wasn't a finish, it was going to be a dominant decision win for Marcos. He was just putting on a pace that Arichi Lang couldn't keep up with, and his striking is very clean. It's very precise. I like the striking. He hasn't taken on any serious grapplers yet, so the takedown defense is good, 89%, but it's a bit of a concern for me because, you know, like I said, he hasn't taken on some serious grapplers of the UFC yet. And Castaneda, he could test him there, but I think defensively, if this fight stays on the feet, man, Daniel Marcos is very good defensively and offensively. The most strikes he's taken in a fight is 70, and the second most after that is 45 when it comes to significant strikes. So this guy, he's got good cardio for 3 rounds. He doesn't absorb many shots. He's gonna put on a serious pace here against Castaneda. And Castaneda, he's been outstruck in 4 out of his past 7 fights in the UFC. You know, he's well-rounded for sure, but the guy absorbs a lot of shots, and it leads to close fights. You know, he looks to take his opponents down in all his fights, but he has some cardio issues, and he has trouble keeping his opponents down. I'm not really convinced he can grapple for several rounds, and I think for him to have a chance here, he's gonna have to wrestle a lot more than he's comfortable with. Marcos should be the faster fighter on the feet. More volume coming from Marcos. He's got an 89% takedown defense, like I said, but it's gonna get tested. And now's the time. I think Marcos keeps it standing, and he outstrikes Castaneda in this one. He will have the bigger moments of this fight if it stays standing, and I expect Castaneda to be diving for those legs on Marcos. But, you know, he's never gotten more than 4 minutes of control time in a fight. So, you know, it brings me back to my point about Marcos having the bigger moments. Give me Daniel Marcos here to win this one by decision. I think he can finish Castaneda late with his volume, but, you know, I'm leaning decision in this one with his volume adding up over the course of 3 rounds. Next fight, we got Andrea Lee taking on Montana De La Rosa. These two met back in the octagon in 2019. De La Rosa looked flat in that fight. She only landed 14 significant strikes, and Lee, she defended 7 out of 12 takedowns from De La Rosa. And, you know, she got taken down, but Lee found her way up very quickly in that fight. And now 5 years later, I think it's safe to say we're going to see a completely different version of this fight. You know, 5 years later, these two, they must have improved. But, you know, the record isn't really showing that. I know these two are on a streak of losses right now. This is one where my money is staying away from. I've been back and forth on this pick. I think De La Rosa has more upside, being that, you know, she's only 29 and she has a boatload of UFC experience. So, you know, you don't know what you're going to get out of her at this point, though. You know, she has worked on mixing up her style, but I think she's a lot more comfortable when the fight goes to the ground. She's got 8 submission wins out of her 12 wins total. If I knew she could get this fight to the ground, I think I'd pick her with a lot more confidence. But she's got a 31% takedown accuracy, and we saw in the first one she was taking down Lee, but Lee was finding her way up in every transition. So I just don't know if you can really count on her, you know. And Lee, she's 35. There's a huge red flag there. She's 35. She's losing by decision to tough competition, though. Never been knocked out. Only 1 submission loss back in the regional scene. She's never been finished in the UFC. Lee is well-rounded. She's a fundamental striker. She doesn't overextend herself, and she tends to do well when she's not getting pressured. But she doesn't have the power to really stop her opponents. And in her last one, Andrea, you know, she was suplexing Miranda Maverick, I believe in the first or second round. She didn't defend the takedowns well, but she found her way up. She finds her way up in all of these fights. And, you know, she's getting beat in the striking against Miranda. And that's a little surprising considering, you know, Miranda is a great grappler. So maybe her being 35, you know, it's starting to catch up. It's starting to become an even bigger concern. But, you know, I think these two desperately need a win. And I'm going to lean Andrea Lee on this one for now. You know, I'm going back and forth, like I said, on this pick every day. Because I can see Lee having the better fight IQ and just being able to repeat what happened in the first. And these two, you know, I can also see De La Rosa, her experience paying off, the youth. And, you know, I can see her getting a tough decision win if she can mix in the takedowns. It's not a confident pick, but give me Lee here by decision. Next up, we got Brad Katona taking on Jesse Butler. Katona, the biggest favorite on the card. It's kind of crazy, you know. He's now, you know, he's fought tall opponents before, like Cody Gibson, who's 5'10". He slugged it out with Gibson, and in that one he earned himself a decision win. But, you know, that win did not really hold up well because Katona and Gibson have yet to get a win since that fight. And, you know, maybe their skills were overrated, but at least it's good that Katona showed he can deal with the reach disadvantage. You know, he's a decent striker. He can wrestle. He's well-rounded. He's taking on Jesse Butler here, who has just not shown he's UFC caliber. And he took a short notice fight against Jim Miller. Jim Miller smoked him in the first round. Left hook uppercut finish for Jim Miller in the first. Now Butler gets a full camp fight here, but he decided to move down to bantamweight. And looking at the level of competition and seeing, you know, he's fought guys 15-8, 17-9, 24-28. I mean, there's just no way that I can pick Butler here. I'm picking Katona to get this one done. Betting wise, there's no reason why Katona should ever cover a minus 600 or something like that. I believe I like the prior experience that, you know, with the guy who's the same height as Butler and Cody Gibson, and the overall body of work of Katona is a bit more proven. So I'm gonna be picking Katona here by decision. Next fight, we got Charles Radtke taking on Carlos Prates. I like this fight for Prates, man. I think this is the better striker, the best striker that Radtke has faced in the octagon. He's only 9-3 with 2 wins in the UFC over guys who, let's be honest, man, one of the worst guys, 2 of the worst guys at 170. Prates, over 100 Muay Thai fights, then 24 MMA fights. This guy is battle tested. The striking is elite. He knocked out Trevin Giles in his last one. He's got great knockout setups and he makes it look clean, man. The takedown defense is the worry for me here in this fight, but 66%, and, you know, he's the much bigger fighter of the two on paper with, you know, height and reach wise. He's been in those fights on the regional scene where he's gotten taken down and held for several minutes. I think he's learned from those moments, and I think there's Still a lot we need to see from Radtke, because the competition is not on the level that, you know, not a knock on Radtke, but you know, you can only fight who they give you. The competition is not on the level of Carlos Prates. I think Carlos Prates would have done the same, if not worse, to Blood Diamond and the other guy. I forgot his name right now at the moment, but he was in the Ultimate Fighter, man. And yeah, you know, this is his time to show his grappling for Charles Radtke. You know, he's been training with Belal Muhammad. He's got a tough opponent here who, you know, he's just the reach disadvantage. I don't like this fight for Radtke. I gotta lean Prates here by knockout. I think Prates is watching the tape. He understands that he's got a good grappler coming his way, and you know, he trains with guys like Hayo Bahario, so I can see Prates giving him problems trying to get this fight to the ground. And if this one stays standing, that Muay Thai experience is gonna play into Carlos Prates' favor once again. So give me Prates here by finish in this fight. All right, next up we got Thiago Moises taking on Ludovit Klein. These two both got a short notice replacement in their last fight, and they both made it look easy, man. Klein, he got the finish over AJ Cunningham in the first round, and for Moises, he just methodically pieced up Mitch Ramirez up until the leg kicks were too much, wins it by leg kick finish in the third round. So judging their last fights, you probably shouldn't put much stock into those wins, for the simple fact that, you know, those two guys were not on these guys' levels. And you know, Thiago Moises, much tougher resume. He's fought guys like Islam Makhachev, Benoit Saint-Denis, Benil Dariush, and he's fighting these guys. You know, it's great on paper because it shows experience, plus he's only 29, but he did lose to all three of those guys I just mentioned. So, you know, he's a very good grappler, and now he's got his first knockout finish in the UFC. So we are starting to see a more complete version out of Thiago Moises. He's had an up and down career, 7-5, and the time is now for him to start going on a run and show he belongs around those rankings. I think that's the same situation for Klein as well, which is what makes this a really good fight. Klein, you know, since moving to lightweight, he has not lost. He's got a win that's aging very well over Ignacio Bahamondes. He mixed it up very well in that fight, landed some takedowns, landed some hard shots on the feet. I think Ludovit is well rounded, and he's got the striking advantage of the two, despite Moises having fought the tougher competition. You know, Moises is going to need to grapple in this one, and I think he's going to have the advantage in the grappling for sure. But Klein, he's not a fish out of water in the ground, and I'm going to lean Klein on this one. I think he's the better striker. I gotta worry about the calf kicks and the takedowns, but apart from that, I think this is Ludovit Klein's fight. I'm taking Klein here, the better striker by decision. Next up, we got Punahele Soriano taking on Miguel Baeza. Questionable chin versus questionable cardio. That's the conclusion I drew from watching the tape. In most cases, you know, you don't like it when a fighter has taken 2 years off, but for a guy who has proven to be a bit chinny like Baeza, you got to think that that time off has done him some favors in that department. And Baeza, he looked like he was top level at one point. You know, his first 3 fights in the UFC, he got 3 finishes with a knockout win over veteran Matt Brown, and he's well-rounded. He's got a black belt in jiu-jitsu, but his striking is, you know, by far his best trait. He's got really good boxing. He makes the fundamentals look good, and he throws with power. He throws with power behind it, so he just needs to land in the right place, and his opponents will fall. It's going to be interesting to see if the chin holds up better with the time off, because Baeza is a savage until he gets clipped, and he's taking on a guy with some decent power. Punahele is making his debut at 170 here. Now, for a guy who was having cardio issues up at 185, now he's got to cut more weight. I don't think that's going to do him any favors. His entire MMA career, when it comes to finishes, apart from one fight, he's gotten it done all in the first, man. And in his last one with Stoltzfus, he just looked terrible. He looked terrible. He kept spamming the left hand, only he only threw 4 leg kicks, and he just kept getting taken down until the cardio dump kicked in and Stoltzfus wrapped him up in a submission. I think Punahele is live for a finish, but it's first round or bust for him in this fight, and I gotta lean Baeza for that reason. I think he's got the higher ceiling. He took all this time off. I'm assuming he got better, but more importantly, the chin definitely has recovered. The 2 years off, he's not getting punched in the face all this time. So I'm picking Baeza here by finish. I think he gets it done in the 2nd or 3rd round. As the fight goes on, Punahele has been known for gassing out, and I wouldn't be surprised moving down a weight class this Saturday if the cardio dump comes even sooner. So give me Miguel Baeza by finish in this fight. Next up, we got Julian Marquez taking on Zach Reese. There's some fights here on the prelims that I would replace with this one being on the main card, but I guess the UFC wants to push Zach Reese. Reese is coming off a loss against Cody Brundage. He goes for the takedown and Reese wrapped him up in an armbar. He just held on to that armbar way too long. The level of competition though, not the best, but he's got 6 wins and 6 finishes, and in multiple ways. He's got knockouts and submissions. He's taking on Marquez, who's also got, I believe, a 100% finish rate himself, but he hasn't won a fight in 3 years, and it was Sam Alvey at the time who had already been on a bad losing streak prior to that. Marquez is dangerous, but just for 5 minutes, man. Surprising, because 6 fights into his UFC career and he hasn't figured out how to have cardio for an entire fight. It's early finish or bust for Marquez in this fight, so I'm going to take Reese here. Reese, he's 30, still has a lot of potential, and he's got to be ready for a dangerous first round. But after that, I think he can start working his way into the fight and earn himself a finish in this one. So I'm picking Zach Reese by finish. Next up, we got Bruno Ferreira taking on Dustin Stoltzfus. I like what I've seen out of Bruno Ferreira in the UFC. Had that one mistake against Ruziboyev where he threw a naked calf kick against a fighter who had a much bigger reach advantage over him, and he got clipped. But besides that, he's got a finish over RoboCop, and he's coming off a win over Phil Rowe here, where he just walked him down and dismantled Rowe in the first, mixed in some takedowns, but his powerful striking was on display once again. Here he finished Rowe with a flying knee that led to some ground and pound. It was brutal, and he got it done in the first. Impressive win for Bruno Ferreira. He showed his well-roundedness. Now the only concern for me would be the cardio, considering he's never gone to decision and he's never seen a 3rd round. The question, is can Stoltzfus really drag it to the 3rd though? He's slow, he lacks head movement, he takes punishment in all of his fights. He makes Rodolfo Vieira look like a world beater on the feet, and we all know Rodolfo wants nothing to do with the standing in majority of his fights. Rodolfo was comfortable to strike with Dustin Stoltzfus. The cardio, it is there for him. He's got some decision wins. His most impressive win by far is his last one over Punahele in terms of names. He finished Punahele in the 2nd, but Punahele, we know he's got that cardio dump. Will the cardio dump come for Bruno Ferreira? We're going to have to see. I think I got to side with the power coming from Bruno Ferreira. I think he can get it done early. I don't think he's going to need 3 rounds to finish a guy like Dustin Stoltzfus, and I'm picking Bruno Ferreira in this fight. Next up, we got Raul Rosas Jr. taking on Ricky Tercios. I broke this one down for UFC Mexico, and my pick is going to stay the same here. Only scare for me is Raul is 19, but I like the dedication and the constant improvement. It wasn't too long ago, he got exposed for being that young, not just in life, but in this fight game. He's only 8-1, and in that fight against C-Rod, he only landed 2 strikes and went 3 for 16 on takedown attempts. It was a clear victory for C-Rod, but he had some moments in that first round for sure. He had C-Rod's back, he had him in a body lock, and C-Rod is tough. He's proven to be tough, and now C-Rod is up a weight class. Ricky Tercios, he's 12-3 with 8 decision wins. Couldn't finish anyone on Ultimate Fighter, couldn't finish anyone in the UFC. He's a high volume striker, but he doesn't throw with bad intentions. It's just shots that add up on the scorecards. His takedown defense is poor. And he makes it up with good scrambles, constant pace. Tercios does not give up on himself, that is for sure. That is his best attribute, his cardio and his pace and his grit. He puts the pressure on his opponents in every fight, and it has yet to really cost him because his chin has been holding up. But I think Tercios is going to test Raul here in the cardio as well, and that's just about it. I think Raul should understand that Tercios is going to be in his face for 3 rounds. Raul's got to be ready for 15 minutes, and he's been training with guys like Patchy Mix, Marab Dvalishvili, who is going to test him in the cardio. Raul understands, what he's got to improve for this fight, and I'm picking Raul to get this one done. I'm counting on him to know that his opponent's biggest strength is the cardio. So give me Raul to get this one done by finish or by decision in this fight. Next up, Dominic Reyes taking on Dustin Jacoby in the co-main event. Jacoby is the pick for me, man. I don't wanna break this down much, man. I think Reyes has unfortunately looked like a shell of himself since that title fight with John Jones, and you can't cling on to that performance anymore, man. It's just been some time now. You either get better or worse, and for him, unfortunately, the chin is just not holding up. Span, he knocked Reyes out with a basic 1-2. I know he was landing some shots before that, but the shots that ended the fight, they didn't look like they had much steam behind them, yet they dropped Dominic Reyes. And for that reason, I can't pick him to win here. Jacoby, 4 out of his 7 wins in the UFC are by knockout. He's gotten it done against tall opponents like Kennedy Zenchuku, and I think we're going to see the same here. I don't see either one of these guys shooting for a takedown. Jacoby's strikes are going to add up, and I just think he gets this one done by decision or by finish. Reyes' chin has not held up, but Jacoby, he can use his high volume as well. That kickboxing background is going to play a role. Give me Dustin Jacoby here in this fight. Next up, we got the main event, guys. Hope you guys like, comment, subscribe. Let me know what you guys think of these picks. Jared Cannonier taking on Nassourdine Imavov. Imavov gets a chance to show us he can go 5 rounds with true top talent, but it's not going to be easy because Cannonier is proven in all areas of MMA, true veteran of the game. He's been a part of the UFC since 2015, title contender at 185, and at middleweight he had only losses to the current top of the weight class. Very well-rounded guy, but it's no secret he prefers to keep his fights standing, and lately he's been in some close fights, but he's outlasting guys like Strickland and Vettori. Close fight with Strickland in that first round. In that first round with Vettori, it was a bit of a scare for me in that fight because Vettori was putting on a pace, but after that, it was Cannonier all the way. He has shown his fight IQ and his ability to take a beating and work his way back into fights. And now he's 40 and he took almost a year off before this fight because of a surgery. So Vegas is questioning how long can the Cannonier durability hold up. I think Vegas is not the only one questioning that. I'm questioning that myself. He's 40, but he does not look 40. He looks like, and when he's in fights with a 10-year age difference with Vettori, he's getting his hand raised. So the age difference isn't really, doesn't really matter here. He gets a main event spot to come back to against Imavov, who's coming off a decision win over Delize. I thought he should have finished Delize. He did have him in some serious trouble in that first round, and he had him hurt bad. Roman's striking, though, it just looks terrible. It looks terrible, and there were moments where Delize was catching Imavov, and he was content to fight near the cage. Roman racked up 10 minutes of control time. The fight IQ is a bit questionable for Imavov, and he's gonna have to make smarter decisions against a guy like Jared Cannonier over the course of 5 rounds. I think Cannonier gets this one done, man. Imavov, he slows down in 5-round fights. We saw that against Strickland. And, you know, I just don't think he's going to make the smarter decisions. I got to lean with a guy like Cannonier who's had much more experience and, you know, hasn't been knocked out by anyone at middleweight. I can see Cannonier walking Imavov down in the later rounds and winning this one by decision. And there you guys have it, man. Those are my picks and predictions for UFC Louisville. Hope you guys like, comment, subscribe. Let me know what you guys think, man. I'm out of here. Peace.